The secretary, pardon me, of District 10 Sheep Association. I'm going to ask Devin Wensink, our current chair, to come forward and say a few words, and then we'll pass the mic around.
2019 we started, so 4 years ago now, and it's our third year here, and we've got about just shy of 300 ewes right now. You'll see when we go in, the first barn is more Suffolk based, about half and half in there, and then our second barn is they're more Dorset Rideau cross. We lay them once a year. We've been doing it split about 150 and 150 in March and then May. The first year we went from 20 to about 300 and lambed them all in March, and it was intense. So we split it up, and it made it a lot easier. But we've got a lot of other things on the go in May, so it's. Now we run, well, this is going to be our first year. The rams are in right now with everyone. So we're lambing everyone again in March. And yeah, it seems to work all right for us. I mean, an accelerated would be beneficial, but we're a lot of irons in the fire. So it's once a year is good enough right now.
So tell us about the other irons in the fire.
Well, we've got a herd of beef cattle, cow-calf pairs, and they're just a March and September calving. So we're spending most of our time in the summer making hay, about 1,500 bales put up, and depending on the year, we do corn silage for them as well, which we were hoping to add to the sheep this year, but it doesn't really make sense here with the modifications we have to make to the barns, and you'll see that when we go in. It's an old hog facility, so it's not really that simple to make the most economic modifications. And we also grow cash crops and maple syrup. Lease these barns from my in-laws. They bought it a few years ago.
So you have sheep in 3?
We use 4 of the barns.
4 of the barns.
So 2 barns with ewes. One barn is we use for our lambs. So after weaning, they go in there and it's set up for creep feed and hay. And then the 4th barn is kind of an extra pen, ram pens, handling systems all in there, and storage. And our small group of cedar lambs that lambed out in September in there. So they're just it's our extra space barn, really.
It's nice to have that extra space.
Yeah, we've seen
how many other people run out of space from time to time?
But we find ourselves running out of space here too, depending on what we're doing with mixing creep feed and trying to store some extra hay here. It can run out of space quick because we bring all our feed from home, which is about 15-20 minutes west of here. Yeah, and so all our feed is stored there, and then we haul it here in the course of the year.
And what would feed consist of?
Right now we're just feeding round bales. So we unroll for the ewes a bale, and we're probably going to be switching to feeders. It's a lot of work rolling on a bale, and this year we couldn't make any dry hay, so unrolling 1,200 pound, 1,300 pound wet bales is not.
Gets tiring real quick.
Yeah, it's not for me. So. But yeah, we haul our hay with our wagon or just the pickup trucks, and it's not too bad. It's easier if it's here, but all our farmland is west or north of our home place, so we can take a walk down and get in the rain a little.
Want to get any questions now before we even start?
Oh yeah.
How noisy are the sheep? Will we be able to answer questions over there?
They should be quiet.
We should be good. They're fed.
These coveralls were first put up in 2003 for a hog operation.
Concrete, so much concrete. It's nice for cleaning out the concrete floors, and a nice a concrete alleyway all the way for all the barns connecting at the top, which works well. Just it comes without the airflow is not the best. We found that with the first year, a lot of pneumonia issues, and that was just moving them into a new building too. But just with the walls so tall, so that's And it's pretty hard to add curtains just with the style of trusses they are now. And it's just a wooden alleyway that's built like a mattress. Got on their webpage with there's a step in there. Works for the lambs. We clean it out right before they lamb, and then the lambs can use it to climb up, which they use to climb into the feeder. But and they use it a little bit when the feed is empty, and then it allows the manure to build up, which saves us. It takes about a full day to clean out the barn, and then it's stored all. We can store about a year's worth on the pad over there, which then just gets spread on the fields here. My in-laws spread it out, which saves us quite a bit of time.
So do you exchange that for rent?
It's part of it, yeah. And it's all organic here too, so it helps them. And we have to empty the barn out 3 or 4 times a year, depends on the hay and how wet it is, and the winter. The winters can be pretty snowy out here. Just once the corn's off, so this is the only object to stop any snow, and we'll get pretty good drifts. Like this winter, we had one on this side up to almost to the top of the bin in front of the door. Took quite a bit to get it out of here, and made quite the mess inside the barns, but that doesn't happen too often, at least. 3 in each barn right now. Yeah, they're about 40, 45 ewes each. 4 of them are mature now, are a few years old. There's 3 Ritos from Colleen, some Chevrolet one in here that we got when we started that's stuck around, and 2 other Ritos that are yearlings came from PEI. It's nice. Yeah, and there's a spare one down in the end there.
He's on duty for the end. You did well,
Yeah. An old barn, really, for pigs. So this was, they figured they'd have problems with the water, and it would be easier for them to fix it above ground. Because the people who put it up still live on the other farm, and that's what we've had a few conversations about it with them. And
That's you can see the big step at the top. That was designed. That's where the pigs would have eaten all the time, wet feed, like a wet dry feed mix. So that's where we do salt, mineral, and water up top, and the creep for the lambs. But the concrete floors, yeah, they're great for cleaning out, but they hold a lot of water.
close it up pretty good in the winter. The doors come down at the front and back, but you see it's still open at the top here. So we'll get snow in, and then if we're lambing, it'll get wet around the edges, which is where our lambing jugs are. So it takes a lot of straw, and especially in March, and depending on how our spring goes too. We were using a lot of straw this year with the wet start.
Does it stay decently warm in there in the winter?
Yeah.
It's like a windbreak. It's like the same, yeah. You're out of the wind. So it's sunny, clear day. They'll get a little bit warmer than outside.
So you mentioned you were thinking about doing corn silage here. What would your plans be to how you would do that?
Well, we looked at a few different options. Either a conveyor down the middle would be the simplest, but it's any of the ways is a lot of change, and like even the J bunks just down the middle, and an alleyway, and you drive wide enough for the tractor. There's enough room with how many ewes we have in here now that spreading the alleyway about to 12 feet. There'd still be enough room for all the ewes and lambs, but the J bunks are just not economical at all. And we looked at shortening the alleyway, and then you just chase all the ewes to one side and feed, drive in, but it's it doesn't really we're looking at more moving them home before changing anything too much here. Just the coveralls are 20 years old, so the tarps are, depending on where you look, you can see some splits and holes. So they're wearing out, and it's a balance of how much do we want to spend on these compared to just building something that is more suited to our needs at home, and then we don't have to transport as much. Because we spend a lot of time just driving. Usually we're once a day here, except for when we're lambing, and then we're anytime from twice or 3 times up to, it depends. We've got cameras and there's Wi-Fi here, so we can see what's going on, but there's some days where I'm here. I'm just, driving home, turning around, coming back, because there's someone decides to lamb and is having issues. So it's a lot of time on the road.
Can you describe what you do for lambing jugs in this barn?
On the south side, and it's the same in both barns. There's anchors in the wall, and we've built just out of lamp or fog panels.
You'll see in barn 4 we have one set up.
Yeah, and then it just we just run it all along the wall on the concrete, and 1920. Yeah, and it seems like they lamb in the first 8 days, most of them, the majority, and then so it's a bit hectic and crowded, and then more normal after that, where we can actually keep them in for 2 days or 3 days, depending on the ewe, and kick them out. And then what we do is, before we just make family pens and split it up. And this year we've been using another barn, like the third barn. We'll, since there's no lambs in it, then we kick them out down there the first 7 days of lambs. They go down there, and then the second week goes on to the north side here, all together, and then the third week, and then the stragglers go on the south side, and it just makes a much bigger difference having them split up by week, and it's just easier to keep an eye on them, and it's a lot simpler than setting up water in each pen, and having 10 different pens for 10 ewes in each one. It's much simpler, it's a lot easier like that.
Are the water bowls here?
Yeah, they're pig water bowls. Yeah.
So you'll see one of our challenges is, for whatever reason, when they set the water up, the water comes from the sow barn underground, but then it comes up. You can see the silver insulation. It comes up and runs along that bus bar to every barn.
Yeah, so it's above
So
ground.
it's above ground. So we've got hundreds of feet of heat tracer and insulation, and it works. It takes a lot of prep in the fall to make sure everything's working and there's no spots. But that's one of definitely a challenge we have with the water here, is that during the summer we'll set up water bowls when it's warmer, as soon as they start lambing and it's warm enough. And we have, you can see that black and green reel, we have those in the sow barns for watering the jugs, and those work awesome. There's 250 feet of hose in there, Gardena I think is the name, and we pull it out the end, fill the buckets as we go, and it retracts and that. But water is one of our challenges that we have.
Much the same. It's got the feeders still up at the front. They're pretty much made to be the same now. Almost like a sick pen at the top there. It's obviously not because they can nose-to-nose contact, but right now we're just using it. Those are some of the smaller lambs at weaning that just weren't having a little bit too much competition in the next barn. So there and there was some creep, and I think there's a ewe in there that separated out. So usually we'll have like a white hog panel like on the side or these things, and put someone if they're having issues, or but we just use our loader tractor. We just take out the first 2 feeders. Okay. Like all the feeders are built in sections, 8-foot sections. So we just take the first one out usually, and the tractor fits in. It's a little bit faster than the skid steer.
We move all the ewes move out to another barn. We have enough room that we can usually move them out, and then we move. It takes us a day basically to feed it out, or clean it out. We use a dump wagon and tractor and shuttle back and forth. And,
it's handy having a portable feed alley you can lift out.
Yeah,
Cemented in, you'd be dodging around the end.
they weren't meant to be a long-term thing.
They take enough maintenance to keep them. The sheep will push pretty good, especially when the manure gets up.
Or you're feeding grain.
Yeah, like they'll you can see it moving now when they're eating, but
They were pretty
sometimes
economical to build. We were able to build the one section in a day.
Use your bulk grain bins at all?
in the next barn we
The
do.
next barn.
Yeah. Yeah,
Wanna
we
go there?
auger. Yeah, we can go there.
And we did use this one too. We had the creep set up.
Oh,
Last year we had the creep set up in that corner. So the first set of feeders, we're using the hog feeders because they're there. The first set of feeders were creep, and we were augering it in from the one bulk bin. And we're doing that. We always do that in the next barn.
The next one. You may have said this and I may have stepped away, but can you just elaborate the stages that these ewes are at? So in the first barn, when will
so
they lamb?
right now both barns are the rams. They'll be in for a little bit longer, and they'll lamb starting March 1st.
March 1.
All of them.
So 2 barns full,
Yeah.
all at one time.
Yeah, it's crazy for the
A
week
week.
and a half, and then
It's much better for
then
us.
we don't have to be planting, moving cows, lambing, weaning, everything all in
Boiling
May.
maple syrup,
Yeah.
yeah, all that
so,
stuff. Yeah.
It'll be
Yeah.
intense, but at the end,
It's nice to be busy, right? Be
Well-
optimistic.
but even having the lambs and keeping them, I find, over the summer and
Well,
into
you-
the fall,
Yeah, we can sell the March lambs a lot sooner and get that. Usually we can hit the
Higher price,
the
yeah.
higher price, whereas now we've got these guys for about a month longer. They stay here. Like we've only lost one since we weaned this group,
Yep.
so it's been really well, but we haven't had the heat. Like if we get them gone by the beginning of July, in the March-born ones, they don't have to deal with the heat. And then
Yeah.
these ones, the May-born, they've got July and August. That's the heat is the problem.
You thinking about switching to feeders?
Yeah. Well, and then just sometimes we'll get to it where we're feeding a bale a day out there. And then this way, if we put in some round bale feeders, it just gives us a little more flexibility. If we I don't know. We've had good luck with the feeders. I know it's not a lot of people have complaints about them and have problems with them, but these ones seem to work all right. We've got a ring feeder in with the rams, and I have to pull the rams out.
yeah, they're smaller.
Yeah. But so the feeder at the top there, the hog feeders are there with the auger, so it goes to the bin outside, and it's on all the time, so we have it full because there's only 8 of them, so there's not that much feed space, but we keep it full all the time, and the bale's full, and as long as it's kept full and running, they seem to do pretty well on it. It's a bit of waste with it right at the ground, but it's not. It's what's here and it works. So, and the fans, we have the fans usually running here in the summer when they first move in here. The March-born ones are only, they are only in here from
2 months.
2 months, max. And then
These ones here are a little bit longer, but
there's about 170 in here right now. And they're all, it's, probably wouldn't want to have any more in here at this weight. They're anywhere from 80 to 115 pounds right now. So,
yeah,
there's,
they're ready to go.
there's some ready to go. And then let the price come up a little bit, and then probably just empty it out and clean it out and get it ready for next year.
So with the divider down the center, this is how it becomes the family pen. So as one of the groups, the first week in barn 1, for example, will lamb out, and then start of second week, that whole first group will come into this half of the barn. And then same with barn 2, the same system will happen, and then this will get like half of barn 2 or week 1 of barn 2 type of thing. So this will have two family pens. Both sides would be week 1 of barn 1 and barn 2, and then the barn 1 and barn 2 then get split as they get into the second week and third week. It just provides us with a whole extra adequate spacing. Like these barns are designed to house if you follow the OMAFRA details, the headspace for feeding is suitable for the numbers we have there. But when we're lambing, it's still okay. But having this extra barn and doing it the way I just described made a huge difference last spring. Huge.
Yeah, it's more room than they need, but it just seems to.
Yeah.
We have it, so it's nice and it helps. So
There was less
makes it
pressure,
easier.
yeah. And we had, and again, it was like less lamb issues in the feed. That was the big thing. And yeah, so that's it for the lamb. That would be the creep coming on because one of the feeders has gotten them low, and that didn't run for very long. Sometimes it runs longer, but that's how it happens. It just refills itself automatically. The creep is made in barn 6, and then it's put in the bin in the front of the barn, and then it's automatically fed.
Yeah, so you would have driven by the auger that we have set up. It's set up for a blower, but we'd have to get someone in to blow it up. So we just have an auger set up, and then we grind all our own creep feed now. So we grind it,
Yeah,
and
we
then
did
just
progress.
run the grinder over there and unload it into the auger and fill it up. About the grinder full is
It's 6 days worth of feed.
yeah.
So every 6 days we have to grind and mix the creep and then transfer it into the bin. This is our first year doing that. Last 2 years we had the creep being supplied by Ambram Co-op, and they would do what he just described, where the
Yeah,
truck
they
would
just
come
show
in
up
and
and blow it up. But
yeah, it's a lot easier,
Nice
but
and convenient.
a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
Any problems with mold in your wet area?
Not yet, no. We'll have these ones are individually wrapped, and they seem to do better like that. We tube wrap a bunch too, but when we're feeding, when we pull them out, we'll bring them down. If they're moldy or don't look good, we'll keep them separate. And these bales last probably about the same time, like 5 days, 6 days, and there doesn't seem to be any spoilage. That's what the nutritionist was worried about, was just if they eat them fast enough. But they're on the drier side too. We've got some that are going to be very wet, and save them for when there's a lot of animals eating, because they won't last as long. We've got one side is our September lambs, just a group of, we preg checked all the ewes, and then anyone that hasn't been a problem or lost ewes before we'll keep and just cedar, give them a second chance just to experiment with it, and that seems to work okay. And then we've got our couple color ewes and our extra ram in here, and then this is where we handle everything too. So we run them all down the alleyway. It's about 3 feet wide, and run them down, and then we can hold about 100, quite a few lambs in the holding pen up there, and then about 50 or 60 ewes, and then we're just here at the bottom. We'll do everything right here, and it makes it a lot simpler.
In March, when we get the hyperthermic lambs, cost about $100 to make. We have a barrel. That's an example of our jug. There, I set it up real quick, and that's our milk machine. We don't have a lactate or one of the different types of milk. 5-gallon pails of milk replacer. It goes through. There's a heating coil inside the black box. If anybody wants to look at it, set the temperature. It'll feed. You can feed up to 8 nipples. We use 2 5-gallon pails, depending on numbers, and then you see the nipples and the white cups are to prevent them from chewing the nipples, which they do. But we'll set it up with up to 8 nipples and 4 different pennies. It works well for the money. You just mix the milk replacer every day, and it's good for 24 hours. And you just pump it through to get it going, and then they just keep drawing it through. It's a pretty good little system.
No.
Our milk Our milk lambs, we have them in the big sow barn. So there's multiple small rooms there, and we're managed to use a room that doesn't freeze. But yeah, the first year we actually took our milk lambs home, and we had to insulate all the hoses and have heat lamps over the milk pails and things like that. So that was a bit of a learning experience. And then this year we kept all the milk babies here, and it worked really well. Separate pens,
And we had a lot less lambs on milk this year, so which was wonderful.
We've tried the bottles, we've tried the milk bars, and this is by far the best.
And it doesn't take much to get them on it.
No.
Like actually what happens typically is if there's a lamb that we know that it's going to be fed, we'll give it the bottle, we'll give it not a water bottle, but a pop bottle with one of those little tiny red nipples that cost like $1.50, and they drink off that pretty easily, and then stick them in the pen, put them on the nipple, and a couple of tries, like within a matter of minutes, they're on nipples. It works phenomenally for us.
It's Shearwell, Heat Wave by Pion.
It's good for not a lot of lamb. Like, you're gonna have a lot of lambs. It's not big enough because you still have to make.
Yeah.
You're mixing the milk
Yeah.
and putting it out.
Did you have any problems with the element under? Or?
We haven't.
Okay.
Ludovic just had a question about the elements, whether we've had issues with the elements, and we haven't. A couple little things that I've had to kind of play with and make sure everything's good, but we haven't had any. It's just a real simple, just a heating element underneath a stainless tub. You fill it with water, and it heats the water up to whatever temperature you want it to be at, and then the milk just it's cold milk in the pails that we mix, and we can do, like I said, full 5 gallon pails. And then as the milk gets drawn by the lambs through the coils tubes, it warms up to their temperature, to whatever temperature. So it's pretty damn simple, but it works. And just making the milk once a day, which is better than multiple times in bottles.
Yeah, but you do need access to electricity, and the little tubes will freeze, so you gotta have heat.
Yeah, we have it set up in the sow barn now. Usually, this year was our first year with it. Otherwise, we'd have them at home, and we'd actually bring the bottle lamps home with us and feed them there. But yeah, it'd be too cold in the barn here just to have it set up. So the sow barn stays. There's space heater in there, and it's all concrete like this, so it keeps it a little bit closer to zero. And a pen separate, like they're out of the wind, and try to keep it as good of a conditions as we can for them, which helps.
Traceability, the tag reader and scale, so Tyler can show it off or talk about it, or
This is our second year with it, or this is the first year we've been able to weigh everything from birth, I think. So we weigh at birth when we're tagging, and with that, so it records in, and then when they run through again at weaning, it's got their weight from how long, from their birth. So it's pretty neat for that, and it was the dam and all the other IDs we get to put in when we're processing them at birth. It's a pretty simple system. It's not, there's other systems for lambing that work well, but we just use it and then transfer to a spreadsheet. And it's nice being able to weigh them before they go to the sale barn to see what the sale barn is saying they weigh.
the operator always stays on it, you zero it. And you can set it up to keep track, all your tracking weights, averages, graphs of every animal. So, anybody wants to take a look? Welcome to ask questions.
And then, yeah, the end there, everything hooks onto the end. When we're loading a truck, we'll lift it up and it just sits right into the back of a truck. Or the preg checker or setup just connects right to it, and the shearer too. It makes it quite nice just being able to, it's a one-person job instead of 3 people trying to get them into those head gates.
Colleen just asked if we have a problem with them getting through. Tyler's pretty good, pretty quick. One of us will be pushing them if we have to. He's really good. You spend all your time on here, right, and you're just clamping them as they go through. The first year we took an old hog barreling crate and made a head gate, and sheep don't like head gates. It was not fun. This has made it a lot easier to handle. Tyler puts through, he can put through 100 in probably half an hour or so.
Well, we can load like 80 lambs onto a truck in like 5 minutes. Just like when the first one runs, they just follow. And as long as you don't spook them halfway through, one tries to goes their own way, they'll just run right through it. And it's pretty quick. Like especially with just the clamp, you can just stop them for a second and let them, like just to spray them, and then let them go again. So they move pretty quick. They move pretty smooth. If anything, it would be more of a tub system at the end, just to we use the gate and then we try to squeeze them in. But as soon as one gets in the alleyway, that's where the slower down is. And the more they go through, the better it flows. So the ewes don't really get worked most of the year. After they get, like, we'll run them through after we wean once, but then so the first time in the fall, winter is a bit slow, and then it's a little busier for the hooves and vaccines and shearing, and then they're getting used to running through all the time. That's the biggest thing, is just if they're gotta go somewhere to be handled, is just almost just run them through with nothing. So they just get used to running through, and they realize nothing's gonna happen. Next time they'll be a little more excited.
So Colleen just asked a couple things. So this is our sorting as well. Ideally, we have more of the gates. Maybe our next program. That's the sorting, and then this is set up auto reading Bluetooth. So this is the tag reader. The baler's mind is specifically engineered for the right height for lambs or ewes, but it automatically Bluetooths to the scale head. So Tyler's much better at this than I am. He can run them through there, and each one is a session. Every time we handle the animals, everything's tracked, their weights, when they're done, what's being done, inoculation, anything like that, vaccination. It's all tracked through the scale head. And it does sorting too. You can color by weight and stuff. Pretty fancy. He's great at it, and he runs them through quick.
How long do you have to stop them in the squeeze to get them capture the weight? Seconds?
It depends on how. It just has to get stable, and then it's records it automatically. It could be seconds to, if they're gonna, some of them will just not stop moving, and then it'll take a little longer, like maybe max 30 seconds. But we were down at the farm show in Woodstock, and they had done some updates. I don't know, they had added like you can get rubber floors, which makes a big difference, because it is loud. And it's loud on the ramps, and it's slippery on the ramps coming down. Well, you can set it up to choose to sort between the weights, so it'll just say center left or center right or straight ahead, depending on what weight you want. And otherwise, you can get more, a lot more in depth to it. I think sorting off on the tags, so you can put in a list for if you're shipping and there's been one that's been treated. Because in the scale head, we record all our vaccines and treatments like that. We haven't gotten quite into using it for all the actual, like if we're gonna treat a you. But you can put it in and it'll come up as an alert. So when you're running it through, it'll tell you to put her to the side or not to ship her yet. Because with a lot of it recognizes a lot of drugs, and it has their withdrawal dates too, and you can enter in otherwise. We just use we use Kazakh now. We use Quebec before. We do it 6 weeks before, and the UMs are we just do them about 8 weeks, and then they get a second dose with the mature ewes. And then we don't vaccinate the lambs at all. We do if we keep them. But
We have about 5 minutes until we need to start heading our way onto the next farm. So if you've got questions, you want to see things more in depth, please jump over there, and I'm going to go over near my car and get the maps and so on and the directions ready for the next farm. So you've got about 5 minutes. This is your 5-minute warning call.
right now they're going to really, yeah. Yeah, but we've done a bit. Well, we've got a few butchered this summer, and we're looking for experimenting with all of that.
Yep.
Even
So yeah, you're thinking of direct marketing, like looking down that route?
yeah, or even
So are you selling in kind of groups of truckloads?
yeah, we'll send when in the beginning in the spring, like we'll just start weighing them every week, and then heavier ones at about 8 pounds for shipping to make room.
Yep.
And then near the end there, we'll just send a couple, 2 or 3 trucks, just load them all on.
Clear everything
Start to make room for the next group.
Also, is a challenge that we kind of have is the marketing end of things, like trying to get the best rate. You send a load to Ottawa and you're disappointed with what you get, and